Okay, hi everyone. We are here, and this time for my questions video, we get to do it in person because Sharon came to Tucson for a few days, and we actually get to. She sent me a list of questions a couple weeks ago, and I said, "Hey, let's wait until you're here in Tucson." And so this is fun. You guys don't just get to stare at me the whole time being a goofball. You get to see both of us. Um, yeah, so Sharon had some great questions that we wanted to share, and we'll have our little chat here. So I have some of them on my phone so we can prompt ourselves, but all right.
Okay, with nutrition, it was like, how often do you have to practice race nutrition to get it down right versus naturally eating and not?
Right, so we were talking, actually, we were sitting and talking a little bit the other day about, Sharon, and for most of us, we like to eat some normal foods with all the training you do. When you're training a lot of hours every week, year round, to be constantly pounding, gels, these really, really high sugar products, it's hard on our stomachs, it's hard on our teeth, it's a little bit hard on our health. And so there are periods of the year where we were talking yesterday that we really want to say, okay, maybe it's our low aerobic training or it's our base training part of the year. We're, far away from our race season, we're going to lean more towards natural foods where it's like, more bananas, dates, sandwiches, your more normal foods that we're getting away from just all the really high sugar sports drinks and gels and stuff like that. Now, of course, as you start to get into your season where we start, we're in that 4 months away from the main Ironman, we're starting to see things on our schedule like, very specific long rides, very, rides with, you know, pace efforts, race pace efforts, intervals, that kind of stuff, and then we have a brick afterwards. Those key sessions, we want to start to play around with what nutrition we're going to use when we race. And as you know, that takes a little bit of practice, and sometimes you try something that you've been wanting to try, it doesn't really work, we've got to adjust it, maybe we take more calories, less. It's going to depend on the weather, what type of race, and then always in races being, we go into a race with a plan in mind and something that we've practiced, let's say, for the last 3 months on every key long session we've done, key long ride, we've practiced this and rehearsed this, and we're really comfortable with it. But say on the day, all of a sudden it's like 10 degrees colder than what we thought, and now we need a few more calories or maybe to add in some more solids. Or all of a sudden it's 15 degrees hotter than what we expected, and so we need to think on the fly and say, well, maybe I need a little bit more liquids or, liquid calories and move away from the solids a little bit. Maybe we need a little bit more salt. So being adaptable and adjustable on the fly depending on what we're doing, but practicing that, every key long session for that last 3 to 4 months before your main event, really dialing in the nutrition.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
And then with the swimming, I have a 25-yard pool that's convenient near home, and then people say, when I go into a 50-metre pool, it feels suddenly so long, and then open water. So how much do you really need to do? Is it beneficial to do a 50-metre versus a 25? How often should we invest that time maybe to go search for one? And how often should we actually do open water?
Yeah, so if you can have access to a 50-meter pool, for triathlon, it is always going to be better, for sure. Now, here's the thing that weighing up those things. If logistically in your life you're driving for an hour to get to a 50-meter pool, you swim for an hour to an hour and a half, and then you're driving for an hour back, that's time-wise, that's not a good use of your time, right? So if it's, once every 2 weeks, maybe you have a really big swim or like your really long swim or your main threshold swim that's like your key pace efforts, or say you have like a 4,000 meter pool type swim, that's a really good time if you've got time in the day to commit yourself to say, I'm going to go to a 50-meter pool and make this happen. If it's something that's easy for you to get to, it's like 15 minutes down the road and you have the choice between 50-meter and 25-yard, obviously that's always going to be better to go to the 50. So as you get and as you get closer and closer to your races, also there's more and more training through the day, plus you have your normal life to manage, so it becomes a time efficiency thing. So I would say that it's always that last 4 months before a race, if you can make your one key swim a week or your longest swim a week, if you've got the time in your life to at least once a week go to 50-meter, great. And same thing, if you can do one day a week in 50-meter pool, one day a week in open water, and then the rest of your swims, in your regular pool, that's fine. You know, you would choose. I'm going to do all my normal swims in my pool. I'm going to do my long, pool type set in my wetsuit out in open water, like an hour, 45-minute open water swim, and then my threshold key set in the 50-meter pool. You know, when you're within 3-4 months of your main race, that's really helpful for sure.
The next question was on the tri versus the road bike. Like, so I've been using my road bike a bit. When do I have to be on my tri bike?
Yeah. So same thing. So I like to say once you're, and all these time frames are similar to your question, right? Once you're within that key period of your main race, so 3 to 4 months out, all your riding should be on the bike that you're going to race on. Okay. So I mean, the only exception to that rule would be an easy 1 hour recovery swing. You know, that 1 hour easy recovery. It's like if we're going to go and just tootle along on the flat for an hour, that's fine on your road bike. But after that, you know, it's really important that all your riding is on the bike that you're going to race on, whatever bike that is. You know, that's the bike you should be on. In the off season, when we're like 6-8 months away from, you know, any kind of important racing starting, then it's fine. You know, ride your road bike for your climbing. You do some group rides. Maybe you're doing some of your long rides on the road bike because it's more comfortable, that kind of thing. That's completely fine. As we start to creep closer and closer, if you're mixing it up a little, you're like, okay, I'm going to do my TT sets and my big gear sets and my aero bars on my TT bike, and I'm going to do my hill climbing and some of my group rides on my road bike. That's okay too. So obviously the answer to all of these questions is the closer you get to your race, the more specific to your race you need to be. And once you're within that, 12-week period of your main race, everything should be very specific for what you're doing. You're picking your long rides to be and your long key rides to be as close to the course terrain as possible as you can for, where you live and what race course you're going to be on. Sometimes that's not an option. If you're going to do a really, really hilly race and you live in a really flat place, maybe you're simulating that on a trainer or those kinds of things, or you're making a couple trips where you go to a hilly place, that kind of thing. So yeah, with all of these questions, the closer you get to your main race, the more specific you need to get.
Yeah. Thank you. And then the other one was timing for, let's say, multi-day rides, camps, and marathons. Like, when's it most beneficial to inject those into your training so that you get bang for your buck?
Yeah, so for really experienced athletes, it's always a great combination to do, like, say we've got the Tucson camp coming here, and it's a week long. It's generally like a huge overload for people, so they're either doubling or for some people even tripling their volume. Obviously, they're going harder because they're at a camp and it's a group environment, so the intensity's higher, all that stuff. For most people, what we've found over the years, somewhere between that 3 and 5-week period, somewhere in there, if you have a race to go to, you see a really, really good performance boost. There's enough time to recover from the camp, get another nice little training block in to sharpen things up, and then head to a race. You often see, a really good performance come out of that. Doing a huge overload cycling block or camp will benefit, if you do it early year, it will benefit your entire year. So anytime you do that, like say you're doing a big camp that's going to be a huge, huge overload in March, you're still going to see the benefits of that for the remainder of the year. And like we talked about yesterday, with something like that, Sharon's going to Epic Camp here in March. Something like that is going to change you as an athlete forever. The benefit that you're going to get from doing something like that is so huge. It's like when you have only ever swum 3 kilometers and you all of a sudden do an 8K swim set. Your perspective on things is entirely different. So not necessarily, obviously the fitness gains of doing these huge overloads is limited how long that's going to last for, and it's probably, going to be within somewhere between that 3 and 8 to 10 week range where we're really seeing a huge benefit physically from doing an overload like that, and then it's going to start to fall away. But mentally, and what you gain as an athlete from doing these huge new perspectives, new level, everything. When the first time I went away to a huge camp, it changed everything about the way I approached training, the expectations I had of myself, the how you go about things is a whole new level. So yeah.
So it's a benefit, but more of a benefit if you could plan on it.
Yeah, I mean, if you can plan a race within sort of a month to 5 weeks afterwards, the fitness benefit is pretty huge. Yeah.
Okay, and the other question was, I often have weeks where I'm doing my workouts and I don't nail a certain workout and I feel guilty. I want to go back the next day and do it better or finish it.
Right.
Like, how many of the workouts in the total week, like this was had a large week,
Yeah.
and do I aim that I nail 80% of them?
Yeah.
Or have I been bad if I don't nail 90% of them? Because sometimes, you're like, I don't think I did it well enough. I think I can go back tomorrow.
Yeah. So that's a there's a couple things happening there where, as an athlete, there is a skill involved in executing right the first time, and then where that is going to play a big role in your development as an athlete is that when you are expected to compete on race day, that you don't get a do-over that day. You got to go up. You've done the training. You're well prepared. You're rested. You know what you're doing, and you've got to put it together on the day. And sometimes that works out. We know what athletics is like.
Yeah.
Sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. But you don't want to get yourself in this pattern where you think, I get to redo every time. It's like, no, when I do this, if this is a key set, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability today, and whatever that is, it is, and then we're better the next time. But we don't give ourselves that window every time that, hey, I'm going to redo this. It's like, no, we're going to do the best we can absolutely right now with this. Now, sometimes it's sport, right? I mean, you train hundreds of hours through the years. There's millions of sessions, and some of them are just, it's like Groundhog Day. It's just putting in the work, and nothing magical happens, and you're like, it's just doing the work. It's just, you just keep putting it in every single day. You're punching the card, and then it comes out on race day at some point where you're like, and sometimes it doesn't always happen right away. Sometimes the work you put in last year shows up at the end of the next year. It's not like there's not this perfect graph where it's like, well, if I do X, it's going to turn up here. It doesn't always work like that. Like, sometimes you can do this huge amount of work with something and it turns up a year or two later, but it was still worth doing, because it got you there. So to answer your question as far as what's acceptable, I think for most people, the goal is you know what your key sessions are for the week, and which are the other ones are sessions that aren't, it's not that they're not key, but they're maybe one's recovery focused, or, you pick each week, there's certain ones that are really important, you try and nail those. And then the other ones, yes, you always want to do a good job every single time you step out the door, but is it realistic that you're 100% perfect and on every single session? Probably not, right? You're going to have days that are good, days that are bad. So if it's somewhere in that like 70, I mean, if you can hit 80% of your workouts on every time, you're phenomenal. That's not reality for most people. Most people are going to hit 60, 70, 75% of their work, and they're going to do really great. It's going to turn out exactly the way they had wanted it to every time. The longer you've been in sport, the less phenomenal days you see. You kind of are like punching the card all the time, and then hopefully you've refined the skill of like making sure it happens on race day every single time, and your best performances are actually never seen in training. You're just sort of doing the work, like, so that on race day you pull it out and perform. And so, the greener you are and the less experience you have, it's like you see a lot of PRs, you see a lot of, fastest times, best watts, execution was like better than your last race. You see these a lot when you're really new or you're green, that kind of thing. And as you get along a little and you're starting to maybe max out your potential of what you're going to ever do, you get to a point where you actually purposely never see that in training, and you only do it in races. And you only see that, like, yes, you do a good job every day, but nothing super magical ever happens. It's like the unicorns are gone, and then hopefully, race day is when you're like, okay, I did it really bad. Here is where all that work pays off. So yeah. So if you're an 80-90%er, where you're constantly like seeing great things in training all the time, that's really unique. Yeah.
Okay. hard one to adapt.
Yeah, right. Oh, well, it is, and because here's the thing: is that as a triathlete, or as any athlete, really, typically what our tendency is we're hard on ourselves and we're perfectionists, right? And so every single time we turn up to anything, we expect that we're going to, if it's written down and we say we're going to do this, and you don't, it's very natural. And I think good. It's good to say, oh, I'm disappointed that I didn't hit that today. That was my goal today, and I didn't hit it. If you didn't care, we would never we wouldn't be great athletes, right? I mean, the fact that you care and you're like, oh, I really want to hit that today, I think that's where it becomes the more and more you train, that much more and more important that you understand which sessions that is key. Like, if it's a key threshold bike ride and you've got very target efforts that you want to hit, that's important to you to hit that day. But if you've got a recovery aerobic ride the next day, you just enjoy that. You go out, you don't need to be perfect on your recovery ride. It's like it's a recovery ride. We're just out there riding. Or if it's like a long aerobic ride, you just go out, enjoy the ride, enjoy the company, enjoy the scenery, being outside, all that stuff. We don't need to be so perfect there. But a very targeted, hard threshold ride, yeah, we come to that with some purpose. Yeah, good. Good. We have a few minutes left. We have a few more here. Just pull up. We're good. One of the questions that you asked that I really liked was the ideal number of events into your lead Ironman. All right? So Sharon talked about that. Now, some people like to race a lot, and they're really good at racing a lot, right? So some people, they can race 2, 3, 4, 5 Ironmans spread throughout the year, and they just keep getting better and better. Some people need really, really long recoveries after a big race and then a big build back in their fitness and then go to an event. That question specifically, like if you have one Ironman that you're getting ready for, you're better off to, do some shorter racing early. A couple of, maybe you hit an ideal number might be 3 Olympic distance races spread out well early in the year. 1 to 2 half Ironmans spread out between 6 and 8 weeks, and then that last one somewhere between 3 and 4 weeks before your main Ironman, and then you go to your Ironman. I find that recipe for a lot of people works really well if they're like, I really want to just focus and target one Ironman, that are able to race well, recover well, and gain fitness from the racing. Now, if you have an athlete that takes them a long time to recover from a race and they beat themselves up quite badly from going really fast, they might need a period of time into their Ironman with no racing, just uninterrupted long, hard training, and no, taper down into a hard race where they can maybe potentially do some damage, and then they have so much recovery after the race. Sometimes that process is so long for an athlete that they lose too much fitness going into their Ironman. If you're someone who can, do a short taper into a half, race hard and well, recover quite quickly, gain some fitness from the half, and then go to their Ironman, that sort of 3 weeks, 4 weeks before works really well. Other people, and that's typically like for females and for someone who's quite athletic like you and recovers right quickly, that recipe works really well. For someone else maybe who, needs like an uninterrupted 8 weeks into their Ironman, that's a little bit different. Yeah.
Yes, is that it?
I think that was most of the questions. We had a few more, but we're, we like to keep these right around 20 minutes. So thanks for actually being right here, Sharon, instead of actually having to do a call in. And love the questions, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.